Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So, I've been seeing videos pop up on the internet that you should just replace your mortgage with a first lien HELOC. If it's 2, 3%, it doesn't even matter. Because if you replace with a 9% HELOC, then something's going to happen. And the reason I'm making these videos is because there's somebody who reached out to me by email and said, I'm thinking of just doing this. And I'm like, what? Right? And what is my answer to whatever your decision is, right? It's do the math. That's the most important thing. So don't listen to just some buzzwords or just say, hey, you just got to do it because someone on YouTube made a video about it. You got to do the math, which is what we're going to do today. And again, I was like so shocked when someone told me they're going to replace their 2% mortgage with a 9% HELOC. And I was like, bro, you have so much equity, you could probably get a second lien HELOC and that'll probably be better for you, right? And just kind of before we actually get into the math, let me just tell you why replacing your mortgage, especially if it's a low interest rate, with a higher percentage HELOC, replacing it entirely is not may not be the best idea. Okay, so if you look at the mortgage, whenever we do velocity banking simulations, it's always the last debt that we pay off. Why is it always the last debt? Because we think about cash flow, and in terms of cash flow, right? Just in terms of cash flow, that's the magic word, cash flow. It sucks up the least amount of cash flow compared to the loan balance. So just if I compare these two loans, right? The student loan and the mortgage, if I pay this $100,000, I'm gonna get $1,000 of cash flow back. But in order to get $1,475, I gotta pay $350,000 back, right? So if you replace your mortgage and then get this cash flow back, that cash flow is so little compared to the payoff amount. That's really the reason why you don't want to replace your mortgage with the first lien HELOC. Okay? But what's most important is that we're just going to do the math and go through the simulation. And folks, every time I see a new video about how you got to get a first lien HELOC, I'm just like I'm cringing because it's like why? Right? And if you're here, it's because you want to do the math and you love the spreadsheets. And I just do this over and over again. I follow Bruce Lee's advice. You ever hear Bruce Lee's advice where he's like, I don't fear the man who does 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man who does one kick 10,000 times. And we are doing this one kick of doing a velocity banking spreadsheet. And we'll see when we get to 10,000 times. I know we'll get there. All right, so what is velocity banking? All it is a debt payoff strategy using your line of credit as your main operating account. In order to do two things, velocity banking, you need two things. Number one is a budget, and then you're going to also need a line of credit as your main operating account. So, with regards to how we do this, there's two scenarios that we're going to compare. Number one is that we're going to replace our mortgage with the first lien HELOC. Replace it. So, like, let's say we have a $350,000 mortgage and we decide to replace the whole thing with the first lien HELOC. Or no replacement and we get a second lien HELOC. Okay? So, let's go ahead and do the first scenario first because this is like promoted on the internet and I feel like I'm the only one speaking out against it. Everyone else is just like, yeah, first lien HELOCs. And listen, I got a first lien HELOC too, but that's because I paid off my mortgage. Okay? So again, in terms of just cash flow, we get itty bitty of cash flow for paying this $350,000, right? That's why we always pay off the mortgage last. We got to pay it off because if you have a loan that takes up an itty bitty amount of cash flow, you end up paying a lot of interest if you ever do the math. Okay, so if we look at this budget, we got this average American, and again, we always use bigger incomes because we call it the extreme financial stress test. When you're not making that much money, every situation that you have is a bleak situation. You know what I'm saying? But as we make more money, we got to learn how to manage our debt correctly. And here we can see that we have a bunch of credit cards. We have 7 credit cards. We got a $40,000 auto loan. right? So it's probably a truck or used truck or something. I don't know. You see how much trucks these cost these days? It's like mind blowing. And then we got a student loan, so $100,000 student loan. Let's hope that if we're gonna get a $100,000 student loan, probably maybe a professional degree like a doctor or a lawyer, we're making decent money, like 10 grand a month, right? Let's hope that happens. Okay, so and then we have a $350,000 mortgage. Okay, so if we sum up all of this debt, if we sum it all up, I actually had to pre-calculate it. It's $622,000 of debt. So in this mortgage, if we replace our mortgage, we need at least enough equity to cover the $622,000. And let's just assume this, right? Let's assume that we have an $800,000 home, or maybe $800,000 of equity to use as a home equity line of credit. Because now, realistically, would this happen? No, but I'm just going to show you what's promoted on the internet, and we're going to compare scenarios of why it's actually even easier when you don't replace it. You just get a second lien HELOC and use this as your main operating account, okay? But let's see what happens when we replace our mortgage with the line of credit. And again, let's go ahead and include all of this, right? We definitely want to include all of these high interest rate debts in the line of credit because that's a big win. But what if we decide to replace everything, the auto loan, student loan, and the mortgage and line of credit as well? Okay, so these I definitely would do in my situation, but these might be a little bit sus if we're going to dump the whole thing in a line of credit. Okay, so let's move the $622,000 of debt into the line of credit, 622,000. Okay, now, if we do the velocity banking with quote velocity banking, because I really don't believe that this is velocity banking, but whatever. Same income, no savings, and then we're going to copy the expenses, right? And instead of savings, we have cash flow. Now, we moved all the debt into the line of credit, okay? So guess what happens to these payments? These all go to zero. Zero, 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 zero. Okay? So now what's our cash flow? It's really good. 7,900. Looks pretty good, right? So let's go ahead and just do the math that we always do, which is how long is it going to take to pay off the $622,000 of debt with $7,900 of cash flow. Now, remember, this is cash flow except the interest cost of to use the line of credit because we calculate that separately. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the calculation. So the next month's balance is the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus, okay, the our cash flow, which is 7,900. And also, let me go over the velocity banking strategy itself. You put your entire $10,000 check into the line of credit, expenses out, right? So the entire paycheck goes into the line of credit, and then expenses out of the line of credit, and then your cash flow, the 7,900 is going to pay off the balance debt. But again, always do the math, right? Always compare all of what your possible scenarios and which one is the most optimal. Sometimes you do want to pay a little more, right? I've done situations where it's like, hey, you could do a 30% credit card, you'll pay a little bit more, but guess what? That's the cost of building credit, right? Because if you had like a $10,000 credit card and you're doing swipes, like $9,000 swipes, and you're paying it off every couple of months, you might build credit really easily. You know what I'm saying? So, all right, so let's go ahead and calculate the interest, which is based on the average daily balance. So let's go ahead and do that. Average daily balance, and then we multiply by that interest rate, 0.09, right? We'll assume we have a 9% line of credit, home equity, and then we divide it by 12. All right, so month one, we paid 4 grand in interest to use that line of credit. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to say that, hey, these credit cards are a definite win, right? Because these are like 20, 30% interest credit cards. But let's just compare. And so now, all we got to do is copy these formulas, okay, and see how long it takes us to pay off this debt. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. And then, as you can see, it'll probably take a couple of years, but we've rammed down this debt, right? All right. So let's keep going and going and going and going. We're like the Energizer Bunny. All right. So let's see how long it takes. And we're almost there. And we see that in 100, we'll say 119 months. 119 months. Yeah, 119 months. We paid the whole thing off. Okay. So how do we calculate the total interest? So let me just kind of, yeah, we'll just do this. 100, I don't know if I'll say 118, 119, but obviously at this point it's not zero, but it's okay. So let me actually, yeah. So let's just do this. 119 months and then sum up. So there's a sum function right here. All the interest. 314 grand of interest. 119 months and 314 grand of interest. Okay. So let me just go here and see. So 314K of interest in 119 months. Okay. So let's go ahead and just do. So that was easy to figure out, right? Like you could do the math. You just put the whole thing into a line of credit and then figure out like, okay, when's it going to go to zero? Because your cash flow is essentially going to stay the same. But 119 months. So let's now go ahead and reset this. Okay. Start from the beginning, kind of. And we're not going to start off with a balance of 622. And, you know, we don't need a $800,000 limit. We may get a second HELOC. We could probably start off with, I don't know, we make good money. We'll just say, you know, $150,000 line of credit, 150,000. Okay. And actually, let me go down here. So how much is 119 months? That's almost about 10 years. Okay. Now, yeah, it's cool that we paid off all our debt in 10 years, but can we do better? Right? Let's think about that. Can we do better? Okay. So let's do no replacement on our mortgage. And let me just reset this again. Okay. And what I would do, again, you don't have to follow me, and I'm not an advisor or anything like that. What I would do for myself is I would definitely move these high credit card debts into the line of credit first and then pay those off. And then I'll attack the loans. Okay? So let's move these credit cards. It's $132,000 of debt. 132000. Okay? And by moving this debt, what happens? Well, these all go to zero, 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 zero. Right? So now we have $4,629.28 of cash flow. And now we put our entire paycheck into the line of credit, expenses out, and then after every single month, the balance is going to go down about 4629.28, right? So let's go ahead and do the math again. So previous month's balance plus previous month's interest minus what is our cash flow, which is 4629.28. So 4629.28. And then now we got to calculate the interest, so let's definitely do that. So the interest is calculated by the average daily balance. So we'll get the average daily balance here. An estimate of it, multiplied by 0.09, which is the interest rate quoted annually. But because the interest is calculated monthly, we've got to divide by 12. Okay, and now what we do is we copy and paste just like we did before and see how fast it'll take us to get rid of that credit card debt. Okay. And we see here, it takes us about 33 months, to pay off that credit card debt. Okay. Now let's just do this and calculate. So what we'll do is we're going to 33 months. Okay. And let's actually put in the interest that we paid as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and sum this up. So data, where do we go? Sum. So we paid about 16 grand. Okay, so let me just put this number here, which is 16.3K of interest. Okay, to pay off all of these credit cards. And now we're going to attack these loans. Okay. Now, if you watch any of these other videos, we always talk about the cash flow index and how we want to attack debts into order of how much cash flow they suck up compared to the loan. And as I said before, if you look at the balance of the loan and you divide it by the monthly payment, you get this arbitrary number called the cash flow index right here. And the lower the number, kind of think of it as a ranking system, the lower the number, that's the one you want to pay off. So let's take a look here. So 33 months, that's when we paid off all the credit cards. Now it's time to attack the loans. You just put 33, 33, 33. Okay? And then you can take a look right here that for this car, right? For this car, we paid 5 grand of interest so far, and the current cash flow index 25. So if we move it into line of credit, this 19 grand, we're going to get a lot of cash flow back. Okay? Now let's go ahead and move it into the line of credit. And again, we could just attack one loan at a time. We don't have to go crazy. So let's go ahead and do that, right? And this is not going to be the most accurate thing, but we'll be close enough. So let's go ahead and go here, add the 19 grand into the line of credit, 19609.58. And then when we add that line of credit, okay, so when we add that line of credit, how much cash flow do we get back? Well, we get an extra $782. So now this becomes zero, right? And then the cash flow is 5411.93. 5411.93. So let me go ahead and copy and paste this. And then we'll do this. Okay. And so I'm going to copy and paste this. And then we're going to replace this with our new cash flow, 5411.93. Okay. And whoa, look how quickly we paid that one off. So that's 1, 2, 3 months at 36 months. Whoa. Whoa, that's crazy. And again, it's probably a little bit faster. Well, no, actually it's not because we did a loan replacement, not doing what we call chunking, but let's just let's just do this to calculate how much we paid in total for the car loan. Let's add this up, right? Add this up along with the total interest here. So let me just do this, and I'm gonna sum this up. So let's go ahead and sum that up. So $162, okay, plus these two numbers is going to be the total interest. Whoopsie, I dropped my mouse. I'm clumsy. All right, so now let's go ahead and just add this up. So it'll be J2 plus K2. So about $5,600 of total interest. Okay, so it's about 36 months in total, right? So 36 months, and let me go back here. So 5.6K of interest. 5.6K of interest. I'm calculating the cumulative time, but calculating the interest separately. I probably should do it, be consistent, but whatever. I've chosen my path. Okay, so now we got to attack the student loan. So at 36 months, let's figure out what the balance of the student loan is, right? So 36, right? And as you can see, these cash flow index numbers are quite high, right? So there's a kind of a rule of thumb. Anything below 50, you want to pay off. You get enough cash flow for paying off that loan, and you could safely assume that's okay to move it to the line of credit. I personally like seeing it below 30. right? So that's one's like, oh, I definitely am okay with moving this to a line of credit. So when we have numbers, cash flow indexes that are kind of high, a little bit above 50, and definitely above 100, um, best to use something called the chunking method, which is like chopping up your loans into pieces, right? So if we have, let's say, a $10,000 income, just move $10,000 of the balance into the line of credit, or yeah, and then just rinse and repeat over and over again. Now, luckily, we have a velocity banking calculator for this, so I just had to um, type in the information, and then it'll just like spit out a number of how long it'll take for me to pay off the loan. So let's just kind of take a look here. Where is it? All right, there we go. Okay, so let's just go ahead and put in the information right now. So that first student loan, whoopsie, was $100,000 originally. Currently, it is 74070.21. 74070.21. And then at what's the interest rate? It is 4%. So I'm looking at my other screen here. So 4% for 10 years. And then what's the loan amount? It is 1012.45. 1012.45. Okay. And we'll just do $11,000 chunk. What is the actual income of this person? Let me look at my budget. It is 10,400. Okay, so 10400. And then our expenses is everything except for the loans we're trying to pay off. So it's actually, let me sum it up here in my other screen that you cannot see. And our general expenses are 2,500 and our mortgage is 1,400. So our expenses, except for the loan we're trying to pay off, is 3975.61. Okay, so basically we're moving about 10, 11 grand into a line of credit and then chopping it up into little pieces. And as you can see here, it takes us 1 year to pay this off, right? 1 year. And as you can see, we don't really pay that much interest in the loan as well. Wow, this is really surprising. Like if the loan had gone to full term, we'd pay about 10 grand. Well, it's not that bad, right? So, all right. So now let's go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and copy this and this. So 1 year and 17. We'll just say 1,800 of interest. Okay, that'll make it easy. And then let's go to the other screen, right? So let's go in here and remember we have to calculate the previous interest. So that's why it's not technically, just 1 grand. So 1,800 plus 10,000, 10,500, right? What is that number? So that's 12,300. Okay. So 12,300 and then 1 year. So let me just go here. So that's 36 plus 12 is 48 months, right? And then let me go back. 12.3K 12.3K of interest that we paid. Okay, just on this student loan. And then now we attack the mortgage. It's the very last one that we attack because it sucks up such little of our cash flow, right? And this is why people usually say, hey, don't pay off your mortgage quickly, because what they're referring to is that because let's say that you make this amount of income and then you have only your only debt is the mortgage, right? Then you have $6,500 $400 you could probably invest somewhere else. That's really what they're saying. But again, let's focus on paying off this mortgage, because if we don't pay off this mortgage, we end up paying 50% interest over 30 years, and some people are okay with that, right? So I paid mine off under 3, but whatever. I excuse me, getting excited here. That's when I burp. So I paid mine off under 3, and you know, I'm fine with that. You know, I don't mind. I don't think I lost something by paying it off under 3, right? But that's just me. Results not typical. Always got to put in that disclaimer. So let's go ahead and then put in that 48 months because it was just 12 months. So 48 right here, 48. Okay. And now this is our current balance. And again, we just chop it up into pieces. There's no reason for us to do a loan replacement, even at this stage, right? So I'm going to just kind of show you the math here of the difference between doing a loan replacement versus doing the chunking method. And you know what's funny? I learned this from Renatus, right? Like I literally learned about how you should not, it's not necessary for you to replace your mortgage with the first lien HELOC from Renatus. The instructor Randall talked about that. Like, I'm not a genius. I didn't come up with any of this, right? And full disclosure, I sell Renatus products for commission. Yes, I make money. Anyways, so let's go ahead. And this is Renatus Velocity Banking Calculator. Not an employee, but they call us independent contracted marketers. Anyways, so let me go ahead and fill in this information right here for 30 years. Right, our expenses are going to be 2,500 because now it just includes our general expenses. And let me put in our other information here. So 30 years, 350, whoopsie. So 350,000, okay. And then what is the current balance? It is 391,410. 391, 391? No, 319,410. Not 40, 410. Cannot do math today. Okay. So 30, what, it's a 3% mortgage, okay? And the payment amount is 1475.61. 1475.61. And then now, bam, it spits this out. So 3.6 years and 19 grand. Now, let me just, I always like to do the comparison, especially at the mortgage, because that mortgage has that really high cash flow index. And if we replace this $319,000 with a $319,000 home equity line of credit, we went from 3% to 9%. Let's take a look here. 19 grand of interest. We do a first lien HELOC replacement. Oh boy, we paid 40, 50 grand more, right? And we paid a little bit more in time as well. So it may look fast, like, oh, you paid off 4.1 years, but, you know, as Thanos said, at what cost, right? Like, was it, if it was not necessary for us to pay that additional interest, why do it? Why do we need a first lien HELOC? Just because the internet told us to? This is why I say stop, watch this video before you do, you know, you think about, oh, I should do a first lien HELOC, because we have to do the math. We have to do it. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and, you know, we did all that, and we're just going to copy the information here. So 3.6 years. So let me actually copy the interest part first. And let's go to the other screen. And I'm going to copy this figure, right? All right. So let's go ahead and add up these numbers, and that'll give you the total interest that we paid. And so that would be equals J4 plus K4. Okay, so that would be about 60K of interest. Okay, so let me just go back here. And how much time did it say? It said 3.6 years. So what we do is 48 divided by 12 plus 3.6. 7.6 years debt free, right? And the interest for just that loan is about, we'll say 60K. Okay, 60K. So now what we got to do is just calculate the sum of the interest, right? And so now it should be just these three numbers here. So wait a minute. Did I screw up? I want to make sure. Why did I put, no, this, oh, never mind. Okay. I'm like going crazy because there's too many numbers here. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and calculate the total sum of the interest. So there's these credit cards, which is 16.3, plus this right here, 5.6, plus 12.3, plus 60, right? So this is like the student auto, blah, blah, blah. So credit cards, auto, student, mortgage, and that's about 94.2K. So 94.2K and 7.6 years, or, and actually let me do this, 119 divided by 12, 9.9 years. Okay. All right, so let's just calculate the difference. So what's 314 minus 94.2? So I'm looking at that as like, all right, well, I guess that's the advice the internet is giving. K, pay actually more in interest. And then let's also do the time calculation. 9.9, 7.6, not 8.8. 9.9 take longer. Okay, so all right, if you want to replace your mortgage and follow the advice on the internet, go ahead and do it, right? Because if you just do a comparison between replacing your mortgage and no replacement, you're going to end up paying $219,000. Now, if you want to do that, just I'd rather you give it to me. You know what I'm saying? Don't give it to the bank. Just give it to me. and you'll pay 2.3 years longer in time, right? So if you're so gung ho about paying off your replacing your mortgage with a first lien HELOC, even though you have a low interest rate mortgage, just give that money to me. I'll probably be happier with it. But if you're not going to replace it, I mean, you'll pay it off earlier and pay less interest, right? Like I don't even know what to say. And here's the thing. Let's go ahead and finish this off with just asking Chat GPT. So let me go to Chat GPT right now, and I've asked this question before, so I kind of cheated and I already know the answer. But let's go ahead and whoopsie. Where am I going? All right. So is this it? All right. So let me do this. Um, if I'm doing velocity banking, is it a wise decision or bad decision to replace my, I'll say 2.5%? Because the person the gentleman who emailed me who had said like, oh, I have a I think it was 3% mortgage, and was thinking about replacing a 9% credit line. I was like, all right, well, maybe you should ask ChatGPT first. Get second opinions, even if it's the AI bot, right? So, is it a wise decision or bad decision to replace my 2.5% mortgage with a first lien HELOC at 9%? And we'll see what the AI says, because the AI is familiar with velocity banking, and I told the AI, hey, write a speech for me as a velocity banking cult leader, right? That was pretty cool. I'll probably use something more like that in the future again, but let's go ahead and ask the AI. Right? So you see the first line right here. It says that replacing your 2.5% mortgage with a 9% first lien HELOC might not be a wise financial move, even in the context of velocity banking. I'm not going to read on all this, but here's the thing. I'm going to be a little bit lazy and going to hit this read aloud button. So let's go ahead and do that. Give me one moment.
Replacing your 2.5% mortgage with a 9% first lien HELOC might not be a wise financial move, even in the context of velocity banking. Here's why. Pros of replacing your mortgage with a HELOC. 1. Flexibility in payments. HELOCs often allow for more flexible payments than traditional mortgages, giving you control over how you manage your cash flow. 2. Access to cash. A first lien HELOC would allow you to tap into your home equity and use it for investments, emergencies, or to pay off higher interest debt. Cons of replacing your mortgage with a HELOC at 9%. 1. Higher interest rate. A 9% HELOC is significantly higher than your current 2.5% mortgage. Even with velocity banking strategies, it would be challenging to compensate for the difference in rates. 2. Increased interest costs. The higher rate means you'll be paying significantly more in interest over time compared to your current mortgage. 3. Variable rates. Most HELOCs have variable interest rates, which means the rate could rise even further, increasing your financial burden. 4. Risk. HELOCs often require you to make minimum interest payments. If you can't pay off large chunks of the principal regularly, you may end up paying a lot in interest. Velocity banking perspective. Velocity banking works best when your interest rate on a HELOC is lower than or comparable to other debt rates. In this case, you're shifting from a very low-cost mortgage to a much higher-cost HELOC. Even though velocity banking can help you accelerate debt payoff, the higher rate may negate the benefits. Alternative approach. If your goal is to implement velocity banking, you might want to keep your 2.5% mortgage and use a smaller HELOC, if possible, for cash flow management or to pay off other high-interest debt. This way, you can still leverage velocity banking without losing the advantage of your low-rate mortgage.
Right. And so this is mentioned in the book by Harsh Gill. I think it was called Speed Equity or How to Pay Off Your Home Faster. And he says that the first lien HELOC is not recommended, even in that book in 2003, right? And so the thing that I might disagree with this is that the HELOC has to be lower than or comparable to other debt rates, right? So again, even if we use a 10 to 50% HELOC, just as long as the cash flow that we have justifies using it, then that's okay. But the replacing your mortgage does not justify the cash flow increase because it's not enough to offset the interest costs, right? So that's why even if you replace, let's say, an auto loan with that low cash flow index, we're going to be okay. But if we replace that mortgage with that incredibly high cash flow index, we ended up paying over 200 grand in interest. And again, if you're going to do it, just pay that to me, not the bank, right? All right. Well, that's it for today. Yeah. Well, another velocity banking video, another study for this so-called velocity banking cult. I don't know if it's really a cult, but some of you want to really be part of it. So I'm just going to play along. All right. Well, have a great day, everybody, and we'll speak next time.